Welcome back to the Haunting Hour, the home where shadows whisper and the unseen lurks in every corner. If this video sends a shiver down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling tales, and ring the bell to never miss an eerie episode. I'm eager to hear from you, so after the video, comment below to tell me which story you like the most and what haunting tales you'd like to hear next. Now, gather your courage, because it's time to dive into the first story. Let's see if you can handle the haunting. As I stepped into the dimly lit corridor of St. Agnes Hospital, the weight of the night hung heavy on my shoulders. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance along the peeling paint of the walls. It was the witching hour. The time when the world outside slept soundly, unaware of the secrets that lurked within these sterile walls. My name is Emily, and I've been a nurse at St. Agnes for as long as I can remember. Night shifts were my bread and butter, but tonight felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, and a sense of unease crept into every corner of the hospital. As I made my rounds, checking on patients tucked away in their beds, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Every creak of the floorboards sent a shiver down my spine, and every shadow seemed to reach out with icy fingers, threatening to pull me into the darkness. It wasn't long before I encountered the first sign that tonight was no ordinary night. In room 213, Mrs. Henderson, a sweet, elderly woman with a penchant for knitting, lay wide awake, her eyes wide with fear. "Emily," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "There's something in here with me." I tried to reassure her, chalking it up to the usual nighttime jitters, but as I turned to leave, a chill ran down my spine. The room felt different, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. As the night wore on, strange occurrences became the norm. Equipment malfunctioned for no apparent reason. Eerie whispers echoed through the halls, and the temperature seemed to drop with each passing hour. But it wasn't until I entered the abandoned wing of the hospital that I truly felt the grip of fear tighten around my heart. The once bustling corridor now lay silent and still, the air heavy with the weight of forgotten memories. It was there, in the dim glow of the emergency exit sign, that I saw it. A figure hunched and twisted, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. I tried to scream, but the sound caught in my throat, suffocated by the overwhelming sense of dread that washed over me. I stumbled backward, desperate to escape the clutches of whatever haunted this place. But with each step, it drew closer, its presence looming larger with each passing moment. And then, just as I thought all hope was lost, a voice cut through the darkness, breaking through the suffocating silence like a beacon of light. "Emily, wake up!" I jolted upright, my heart pounding against my chest as I struggled to make sense of my surroundings. It was just a dream, I realized, relief flooding through me like a tidal wave. But as I glanced around the empty hospital room, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of my mind. What if it wasn't just a dream? What if there was something lurking in the shadows, waiting to claim its next victim? As I pulled the covers tight around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that, somewhere out there, in the darkness, something sinister was waiting, biding its time until the next unsuspecting soul crossed its path. And as I drifted back into uneasy sleep, I knew that the horrors of St. Agnes Hospital were far from over. They say the hospital changes after dark, that the long shadows and flickering lights draw out the stories that daylight dreads to tell. I never believed it until last night. My name is Dr. Alex Hart, just your everyday ER doc at Mercy General. I'm the guy you find in scrubs that are a bit too worn, sipping lukewarm coffee to get through another graveyard shift. You'd say I'm just like any guy you'd meet at a grocery store on a Sunday morning. Except I spend my nights stitching up wounds and setting bones while the world sleeps. Last night began like any other. I clocked in at 9 p.m., grabbed my 5th cup of coffee for the day, and started my rounds. The ER was unusually quiet, and the hush felt unsettling. Nurse Jenna, always with a knack for creepy jokes, leaned over and whispered, "Quiet nights are when the ghosts get restless, Doc." I laughed it off. "Keep the ghosts away from my coffee, Jenna," I said, my voice echoing slightly too loudly against the sterile walls. As the clock struck midnight, the first oddity of the night occurred. The lights flickered, a common annoyance lately. But then, in the dim glow, I saw him. An elderly man in a tattered hospital gown, standing at the end of the hallway. He was staring directly at me with a hollow look that chilled my bones. "Can I help you, sir?" I called out, approaching him. But blink, and he was gone, vanished into thin air. I shook my head, blaming the lack of sleep. Soon after, a young woman was wheeled in, delirious and mumbling about shadows chasing her. As I examined her, the power dipped again, plunging us into darkness. Her screams filled the room, not just in fear, but of pain. When the lights returned, her face was inexplicably bruised, as though the shadows themselves had attacked her. Throughout the night, these bizarre occurrences escalated. I saw fleeting glimpses of figures darting into rooms that were supposed to be empty, heard whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves, and the air grew inexplicably cold. The staff began to notice too. We moved through our duties with a growing sense of dread, jumping at every sound. Around 3 a.m., when the veil between our world and whatever lurks beyond feels thinnest, I found myself drawn to the old records room, a place I normally had no reason to visit. Inside, I discovered an old, dusty file about a fire at the hospital 50 years ago, which happened eerily on this very night. The file detailed how several patients, trapped and unseen, perished in a now sealed wing of the hospital. I was poring over these haunting details when Jenna found me. "Alex, you need to see this," she said, her face pale. She led me to a room where the lights flickered erratically. Inside, the elderly man I'd seen earlier reappeared, pointing towards the sealed wing. Driven by a mix of fear and a need to know, Jenna and I ventured towards the abandoned part of the hospital. As we approached, the temperature dropped, and our flashlights flickered as if resisting our intrusion. We found the sealed wing, the door slightly ajar, as if inviting us in. Inside, the remnants of the fire were still evident, scorched walls and melted fixtures, a grim memorial. The air was thick with the presence of something unexplainable. And there, on the charred walls, were messages. "Please call for help," that had gone unseen. We suddenly understood. The unrest we experienced was from those lost souls, still crying out for acknowledgement, for someone to know their fate. We decided right then, we had to bring this to light, to give them peace. As we left the wing, promising to return and do right by these forgotten souls, the hospital seemed to sigh in relief, the atmosphere lightening. We exited into the breaking dawn, the night's horrors giving way to a new day's resolve. Back in the light of day, you might think it was just a series of spooky coincidences, fueled by too many ghost stories and too little sleep. But ask anyone who works the night shift. They'll tell you, Mercy General holds more than just the living. And some nights, it demands to be heard. As I share this story, my only hope is that it leaves you with a curiosity to explore the hidden stories of places you think you know. After all, sometimes reality is stranger and more haunted than fiction. The moment you start thinking you've got the hang of the night shift, that's when the shadows decide to whisper back. I'm Jake, by the way, A regular guy with a knack for bad coffee and late-night conversations with nurses about who makes the best pizza in town. Nothing special, just your everyday security guard trying to keep the peace at St. Michael's Hospital. It was a windy Tuesday night, the kind that makes the whole building creak and groan like it's settling into an old man's stretch. My shift started at 10 p.m., and it was business as usual, checking in with the night nurses, doing my rounds, and avoiding the emergency room chaos. But there's one place in the hospital that even the rowdiest drunks won't go near after dark. Ward B. Ward B had been shut down for renovations ever since the flood last spring. No patients, just empty beds and memories of old pains. Or so I thought, until tonight, when I heard the unmistakable creak of a door in that supposedly abandoned wing. Armed with nothing but my flashlight and a stale sense of humor, I decided to investigate. Probably just the wind, I muttered to myself, trying to ignore the chill crawling up my spine. I pushed open the door to Ward B, and the air felt strangely heavy, like stepping into a room that hadn't been opened for a century. I walked down the corridor, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the silence. That's when I heard it, a soft giggle, the kind that should have belonged to a child playing hide and seek. Only there were no children scheduled in Ward B, not anymore. "Hello? Anyone there?" I called out, more to comfort myself than in hope of a reply. The giggle stopped, replaced by a soft whisper. "Come find me." Every instinct screamed to turn back, but I couldn't. Curiosity, or maybe the foolhardiness that makes a man work night shifts at a hospital, pushed me forward. I followed the whispers to room B19, the door slightly ajar. Inside, the room was cold, colder than it should have been. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room, and for a moment, I saw the outline of a small figure by the window. Blinking, I looked again, but there was nothing. Just an empty room and the lingering feeling of being watched. The whispers continued, leading me through a maze of hallways I thought I knew by heart. Yet everything seemed different, distorted. I ended up at the old pediatric wing. A mural of a sunny day on the wall now looked like a storm brewing. That's when I saw them. All the toys we thought had been lost in the flood were arranged in a circle in the center of the hall, as if waiting for a tea party to begin. In the middle of the circle sat an old walkie-talkie, one that hadn't worked in years. Hesitantly, I picked it up. "Jake, come play with us." A child's voice crackled through the speaker. My heart stopped. The room went silent, the whispers gone, as if holding its breath. Shaken, I left Ward B, locking the door behind me. I reported it as a security check, omitting the details that would make me sound crazy. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks, the fatigue of too many night shifts. Or maybe, just maybe, Ward B isn't ready to be left behind. So here I am, sitting at my desk, writing this down while it's fresh, because tomorrow, I'll convince myself it was just the wind. Or will I? In the night shift, you never do know what's real and what's just shadows whispering secrets in the dark. And maybe some mysteries are best left unsolved. But if you ever find yourself in St. Michael's Cess, maybe take a moment to listen. Just don't follow the whispers. Ever hear the one about the surgeon who could talk to walls? Yeah, neither had I, until the walls started talking back. I'm Dr. Sam Carter, just your average Joe with a penchant for midnight snacks and double shifts at Mercy Heights Hospital. Most folks think surgeons live some kind of high-octane, scalpel-wielding drama every moment of their lives. Truth is, most nights are just a mix of routine procedures and endless cups of coffee. But last Thursday wasn't one of those nights. It was a little past midnight, the kind of quiet that makes you think the world outside has disappeared. I was prepping for a routine appendectomy. Nothing fancy, just a get in, get out sort of deal. The patient was stable, the anesthetic was working its magic, and my playlist was softly humming through the speakers of the OR. That's when I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper coming from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Sam, it sighed. So quietly I thought I was imagining things. Probably just the AC acting up again, I mumbled to myself, focusing back on the task at hand. But as I made the first incision, the whisper came again, louder this time. "Help me, Sam." I stopped, my hands steady but my heart racing. The room was empty except for me, the patient, and the anesthesiologist, who was thoroughly engrossed in a crossword puzzle at his station. "Did you say something, Mike?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Nope, just trying to figure out a 5-letter word for ghost," he replied without looking up. Funny, if it weren't so creepy. Shaking off the chills, I went back to the surgery, but the whispers didn't stop. They grew into voices, multiple voices, crying out in pain and fear. I wanted to run, to shout, to do anything but stand there. But I had a job to finish. So I focused on my hands, guiding my instruments with more care than ever before. As I worked, the voices began to tell their stories. They spoke of old surgeries, of forgotten patients whose spirits seemed imprinted on the very walls of the OR. They whispered secrets, regrets, and unfinished goodbyes. My rational mind screamed at me to ignore them, but something deeper, more primal, listened. The operation finished without a hitch, the patient safe and sound, but the voices didn't stop. They followed me as I left the OR, echoing down the empty hallways. I reported the incident to the hospital admin, expecting disbelief. Instead, I got an awkward silence, and, "We've had reports before, Dr. Carter. Just not from someone of your stature." Turns out, Mercy Heights was built on the grounds of an old sanatorium, something I'd never known despite working there for years. Patients and staff alike had heard the whispers, always attributing them to stress or fatigue. But I heard them clear as day. And now, I can't help but wonder, who will they talk to next? Will they be heeded or ignored? So next time you're in a hospital, listen closely. The walls might have something to say, and not all of it is about ghosts. Some of it is about memories, lingering in places we think are sterilized from such things. Maybe, just maybe, we ought to listen. You never truly know a place until you've seen it at night. That's what my dad always said. He might have been talking about fishing spots, but after my first week as a registered nurse on the night shift at St. Jude's Hospital, I think it applies just as well to hospitals. My name's Tyler, and if you told me a week ago that I'd be chasing shadows and soothing invisible patients, I'd have checked your temperature. It all started my first night alone in the ward. St. Jude's isn't exactly the Ritz. It's got the kind of charm only a half-century of wear and tear can give. The night began as usual, me checking charts and fluffing pillows, trying to look more confident than I felt. Around 2 a.m., I was making my rounds. The click of my shoes against the linoleum echoing down the dimly lit hallways. That's when I heard it. Soft sobbing coming from room 305. The catch, room 305, had been empty since Mrs. Henderson was discharged that morning. Curiosity piqued, and nursing protocol be damned, I nudged the door open. The room was pitch black, colder than the rest of the hospital. "Hello?" I ventured, half expecting a reply. The sobbing stopped abruptly, as if cut by a switch. I fumbled for the light switch, but before I could find it, I felt a chill brush past me, like a whisper made of ice. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and not just from the draft. "Gotta be the AC," I muttered, finally flipping the lights on. The room was empty, no sign of any unauthorized sobbers. I chalked it up to the sleep-deprived brain of a rookie RN and continued my rounds. But it didn't stop there. Every night, around the same time, the sobbing returned. I mentioned it to Judy, one of the veteran nurses. She just winked and said, "Oh, that's just St. Jude's saying goodnight." You'll get used to it. I might have shrugged it off if not for the night I saw her, the crying lady, as I later dubbed her. Checking room 305 had become part of my nightly ritual, a way to assure myself there was nothing to it. But there she was, sitting by the window, her face buried in her hands. As I stood frozen in the doorway, she looked up. Her eyes, red from crying, met mine, and my heart skipped a beat. "Can you see me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, unable to find my own voice. "I'm so cold," she said, and then vanished, as if she had never been there at all. The next day I did some digging. Turns out room 305 was where Sarah, a young nurse back in the 70s, spent her final moments. An accidental overdose, they said, a tragic mistake. They also said she'd been heartbroken over a patient who'd passed away under her care. Now, I'm not much of a believer in ghosts or hauntings, but Sarah's story touched me. Night after night, I talked to her, told her it was okay to move on, that her patients knew she did her best. Slowly, the sobbing grew less frequent. The last time I saw her, she didn't cry. She just smiled at me, a kind of sad, grateful smile, then faded away, leaving room 305 just a little warmer. Since then, the nights have been quieter, but every now and then, I swear, I feel a chill pass by, like a thank you from someone unseen. So yeah, you never truly know a place until you've seen it at night. St. Jude's taught me that. It taught me that healing might be our trade, but sometimes what needs healing isn't just the body. And sometimes the one who needs the comfort of a nurse isn't a patient in the bed, but a spirit lingering in the shadows. As the chilling tales of the scariest hospital night shift stories draw to a close, I hope you've enjoyed this spine-tingling journey through the darkest corridors of the medical world. From phantom patients to haunted operating rooms, each story has brought a new dimension of fear to the night shift experience. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for joining me on this hair-raising adventure. Your support and enthusiasm mean the world to me, and I couldn't do it without you. If you found yourself on the edge of your seat, or if any of these stories sent a shiver down your spine, don't forget to show some love by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. By doing so, you'll ensure that you never miss out on future tales of terror. I'm dying to know which of the 5 stories was your favorite. Be sure to drop a comment down below to let me know which one kept you up at night. And while you're at it, tell me what kind of spine-chilling stories you'd like to see next. Your feedback helps me craft the most bone-chilling content for you. Until next time, stay safe out there, and may your nights be free from the horrors that lurk in the shadows. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.